Welcome everyone, Christine here on Serious Gaming. So now that the European Union's copyright directive has passed with Articles 13 and 11, though with some changes including the names of the articles, like 15, 17, something along those lines, because what the European Parliament does is blow smoke in people's faces, as does the European Commission. They're trying to hide the fact that they passed this. Then there's that great story, the members of the European Parliament were pressing the wrong button, as well as other things. So plenty of shenanigans that took place when it came to this issue. And I'm sure there will be many more to come. The fight isn't over. There's still the European Council, but many people assume that's already going to happen. And then finally, there's legislation that each country has to pass on this particular issue in the European Union to abide by the European Union's copyright directive. And leading the charge on this is France. And this presents a significant problem in the sense of the European Union, because France is one of the main backers, one of the strongest countries in favor of greater European integration, and yet it is the country also leading the charge on this. I'm sure a lot of people that are invested in the way the internet works are going to be happy with the fact that the country most involved in keeping Europe united, further integrating Europe, is also the country most responsible for this passing, because Germany is a bit divided on the issue. Other countries, are here and there, but France is firmly in favor of Articles 13 and 11. They have led the charge on this issue, as well as other issues. What's next? A free strike law on a European level, a free strikes directive on a European level when it comes to internet piracy. That's going to be interesting. But hey, there's going to be other things that are going to happen. It's going to be a disaster for a number of reasons. The first and biggest of reasons is the fact that this is the end of the internet as we know it, in more ways than one. That might sound exaggerated, but hear me out. See, the internet as we've known it, as we grew up with it, as it was developed, the World Wide Web, that is, was supposed to work more or less the same in almost every country. Sure, some variations here and there, but for most part, the internet was supposed to work mostly the same across national borders. It was, it was supposed to be this great tool, and it is this great tool to bring people together regardless of nationality, ethnicity, language, so on. And that's the main that's one of the greatest achievements of the World Wide Web as we know it. With this directive and with other things that are going on right now, be it censorship in Europe, censorship in China, various steps that are being taken around the world, you're seeing a crackdown or an end to the World Wide Web in more of a regional internet, so European internet, an American internet, Chinese internet. I mean, it had already been going on, but it's pretty sad when Europe moves in the direction, because of political crises, because of money in this case, they're moving more in the direction of China as opposed to staying in the direction of the United States. And mind you, the United States has its own issues, the death of net neutrality. Now, net neutrality being destroyed by the FCC is not significantly a problem for now, because the internet companies, ISPs in America, know that if they actually did something that that violated net neutrality, for a lot of users, that affected daily users in a significant way, if they did that, they would get destroyed, and that would only aid politicians to get elected in office on a platform, in a sense, of restoring net neutrality. So the internet service providers are being fairly careful right now, but when it comes to Europe, I don't think that the big companies that are responsible for this directive are going to be as careful. I think the issue with this passing is the fact that there was such a lack of attention on it when you had SOPA or ACTA or PIPA or other issues being brought up in past years, there was a lot of media attention. There was significant public attention as a result of that, and there were massive protests. Not so much right now, which is part of the reason, a significant part of the reason why this thing has passed. Now, it's not the end of the world, I think, but I also think that passing rules just because the music companies want to get a bigger share of the cut from YouTube is just stupid. And by the way, I knew someone, a friend of mine, worked for one of the big music labels, one of the companies responsible for this passing, and I openly talked with him about this, and I asked him straight up what the situation was, and he told me that YouTube bends over for the music labels as is, and now this is just giving them more leverage. It's just about greed. Like, forget some people have a real stance on the issue of copyright, but this isn't about copyright. This is about greed. This isn't about, YouTube is violating the rules of copyright or what they're doing is immoral. No, it's not about that. These companies want to get a bigger share of the pie. That's it. And pardon me if I'm going to say this outright, I don't give a damn how much, what percentage this company is taking versus what percentage YouTube is taking. I care about the internet. I don't say this just because I'm a YouTuber. I'm saying this because I grew up, when I grew up, the internet was a significant part. Computers, the internet became a very significant part of my life. And to watch the internet go to hell as a result of misguided and foolish decisions is just something that I don't like at all, for a variety of reasons. I think that this will also, if we're talking about the impact of this directive, you're going to see a split in the European Union. There are countries that are going to adopt looser rules than others because it came down to a regional level, right? I mean, yes, you had the directive passed, but you then had countries or parties in power in many countries in Europe that were firmly against, or still firmly against this directive. So that's going to be, there's the political angle over there in the European Union, how that will affect relations between various European countries and Brussels. It's gonna create more and more issues for the European Union, which honestly, like, looking at the situation of the European Union, I've got to say this: I don't think it's a rosy picture, and I think that what the European Union is doing is not helping at all. I think it's just an increased level of skepticism, and it's just, throwing more gas on the fire. Well, eventually everything's gonna blow up. That's the problem. That's how I feel the European Union is going. It's not a great situation, not just because of this. This is just one issue among many other issues, but it's going to explode at some point. Things are going to get very, very ugly. I mean, how many anti-establishment, how many Eurosceptic parties need to win parliamentary elections in Europe for those in charge to realize they just can't keep doing things? And yet they keep doing them. This is a perfect example. This is Europe at its worst in many ways. All the accusations the Eurosceptics throw at Brussels, well, this is it. This is a perfect example of that. But it's not just that. There are many other issues, like the actual impact. Let's talk about that. The actual impact for users. Well, you're going to see a lot of content in Europe, especially on the big social media platforms, YouTube in particular, Twitch maybe. You're going to see a lot of content being made unavailable for people. I think there was some information out there that YouTube would cut off at least 35% of YouTube to European users, or they'd make an app. They'd have to make an app specific to Europe to restrict access to about a third of YouTube. Now think on that for a second. And what's next? What's next is that people that care to watch content unrestricted by, by their geographic location are going to turn more and more, and they already have turned more and more to VPNs. So that usage is going to increase, but that's not the solution in itself. That's just a band-aid, because what's going to happen then, and it's already happening to an extent, to at least when it comes to piracy, but it's going to apply here as well, is that you are going to see a crackdown on VPNs, a change in the usage of VPNs, and that's just going to create more issues. So content is going to be gated more and more on a regional level, and that's exactly what these companies want, right? The companies that support this they want you to be restricted, because they want you to go to them directly. They want you to go for their content, and they don't want you to have other means. If they can remove competition, then that's great for them, right? That's very much in their favor. And that's precisely what they've been aiming here. And that's precisely what will happen, I feel. At least in certain countries in the European Union that will adopt strict laws with regards to the copyright directive. France already has said that they will push legislation already, I think this summer, that's going to happen in France. And slowly but surely you're going to see this more and more happening in Europe. It's going to take about 2 years or so for the directive to be fully implemented, but obviously local legislation, that can take significantly less time, and there's going to be a lot of problems. There's just no two ways around that. There's no pretty picture, there's no rosy situation. I mean, and the companies that push this are going to find themselves in a situation where they're not going to get as much money as they think they will. Well, Questine here on Serious Gaming, signing off. Thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more, and if you did like this video, well, consider watching my other videos on this particular subject.